Welcome to the first session of the Global Chinese Economy and Technology Summit, where we will talk about the geostrategic and geoeconomic challenges facing a new multipolar world. In particular, we are going to look at the role of China in Asia and beyond. I have a very distinguished panel here, both physically as well as online. So in the interest of time, we are going to start almost right away. Every speaker will have 10 minutes in principle. If you could squeeze it to like 7 to 8 minutes, I would sincerely appreciate that, because we need to end hopefully by 12:30 so that we can go for lunch. I don't want to stand between you and the lunch. So let's first of all welcome His Excellency Dr. Sok Siphana, Senior Minister of the Royal Government of Cambodia, for a special address. Round of applause.
All right. Well, so I think it's still good morning, right? Well, good morning to you all, and it is again a pleasure to address this body again. I have the opportunity to speak yesterday on different topic, ASEAN, China, investment and trade. But this morning, the focus will be more on the geopolitical and geoeconomic challenge facing a new multipolar world. And here we're talking about the role of China in Asia, particularly the BRICS. In the last 2 months, we had 3 major events that have shaped the agenda of the world leader. The first one is the BRICS Summit in South Africa. The second one is the ASEAN Summit and Relate Summit in Indonesia, and the last one is the G20 summit in New Delhi. The outcome of these 3 summits basically was all about trying to determine the course of the world, as right now the headwinds is still very strong, in terms of economic growth and stability, is still very strong. And this is even before the outbreak of the Israel and Hamas war. This is before that. So I cannot imagine now, because if 2 months ago we still have a strong headwind, now it's worse. But the G20 is a forum for international economic cooperation, and it's not a platform to resolve a geopolitical and security issue. But since the end of the World War II, the global world order have changed dramatically. And I think for the G20, they attempt to try to revitalize multilateralism so that it can adequately address contemporary global challenge for our centuries. As for the ASEAN Summit, Indonesia theme ASEAN Matter, or epicentrum of growth, was really an indication on the regional grouping attempt to refocus its attention on sustainable economic growth in the region. For that matter, they have launched several flagship initiatives like local currency, trading with local currency, establishing an ecosystem for electrical vehicle, for example. But I think ASEAN quest for strategic autonomy this year seemed to be overshadowed by the recent BRICS summit, with its dramatic expansion of 6 new members, namely Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, and mind you, Ethiopia is the 2nd largest population in the African continent. Then you have Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Iran. All of the 3 were the main oil exporter. So in my view, it shouldn't come as a surprise, as one of the key driver of trade among the BRICS countries is a growing demand for commodity, such as oil and gas and minerals. For example, Russia is a major exporter of oil and gas, while Brazil and South Africa are major exporter of minerals such as iron ore. China, the world's largest consumer commodity, and China has become a major importer of this resource to other BRIC countries. In addition to commodity, the BRICS countries also trade in a wide range of manufactured goods and services. India, for example, is a major exporter of IT services, while China is a major exporter of electronics and other consumer goods. Brazil is a major exporter of agricultural products, such as soybean and coffee, while lastly, South Africa exports a range of products, including precious metal, chemicals, and machinery. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, the original BRIC 5 countries, particularly China, are considered to be the major emerging economy that have a significant influence on global affairs. They have a GDP, combined GDP, of over 26 trillion in 2022, which is slightly larger than the US, and out of which China is the largest contributor with 18 trillion. In fact, China GDP is also larger than the combined GDP of the other 4 BRIC countries. It is interesting to note, though, that the urge to influence global governance among the southern states date back way to in the 1998, around that time. That's when you have the emergence of initiative like the strategic triangle, where you have Russia, India, and China. And it took another 10 years before Brazil joined at the summit in Yekaterinburg in 2009. A year later, South Africa joined as a 5th member of the bloc. So although the bloc was originally conceived as an economic concept, it has evolved rapidly with more institutional, high-level political interaction and economic institutions like the new development banks and the contingent reserve arrangement. And I would say it's quite similar to the ASEAN nomenclature. The BRIC operate within 3 main pillars, namely political security, economic and financial, and cultural and people-to-people exchange. Ladies and gentlemen, the emergence and expansion of BRICS are not merely the product of post-Cold War grievance. And we all know that in the post-Cold War, the West has dominated the global financial and political institution. More recent grievances have occurred in the last 2 decades, particularly as a result of the US banking crisis in 2008 on the global south, the dominance and unequal seat and voting power of developing countries in the IMF and the World Bank. Let me just pinpoint one statistic. Despite the BRIC economy representing 31% of global GDP and a population of 3.2 billion, they only have 15% of the voting right at the World Bank and IMF. And here I want to open a parenthesis on the AIIB, because for so many years, they've been trying to reform the Bretton Woods to the point that China decided, well, you know, we want to sit at your table, and the World Bank wouldn't allow it. So China decided, well, since you don't give me the seat, I'm going to create my own table, and I'm going to dish out the seat. So that's how the AIIB came about. But, you know, I mean, recently at the BRICS summit, you have President Xi Jinping calling for the democratization of international relations and the reconfiguration of the global financial architecture. Here he's talking about reforming and building on the Bretton Woods institution, the UN, the IMF, the World Bank, and certainly the WTO. There's also the discriminatory accessibility of vaccine, which you all know during the COVID-19 pandemic, and the failure of the developed world to provide financial support for climate change and global warming. Then you also have the U.S. constant effort to undermine the WTO dispute settlement mechanism. That's another factor there. But I think the most obvious factor is the weaponization of the US dollar, with the last victim being Russia, which was compelled to withdraw from the Western financial circuit. And I believe that the concept of de-dollarization has gained traction in recent years, but we don't know yet how it's going to go. So it's quite clear that BRICS has now become a more strategic economic powerhouse in our current multipolar world. With this global shift, certainly new geopolitical and geoeconomic challenges will arise. And with the ongoing economic fragmentation and effort of decoupling and friendshoring by the US and its ally, several questions have emerged as to the role of the BRICS and evidently the role of China in this new global arena. Recently, I have read a report of the World Economic Forum, the Global Risk Factor, the Global Risk Report 2023, where they highlight the geopolitical risks posed by geographic hotspots, particularly in Asia Pacific, and the geoeconomic confrontation, the like of economic sanction, trade war, and investment screening. The report ranked them as severe risks over the next 2 years in many East and Southeast Asian countries. And we all know that economic warfare is becoming a norm now. And we can observe that economic policy are used defensively to build self-sufficiency and sovereignty from rival China. Also, through onshoring and friendshoring global supply chain in strategically important industry and products, such as technology, telecommunication, financial system, and pharmaceutical. Other policy measures are also deployed, this time offensively, like boosting local production and minimizing foreign interference in critical industry like subsidy, tighter investment screening, data localization policy, visa ban, and exclusion of company from key market. There's also economic level, which like delisting of foreign company, extensive use of export control on key technology and intellectual property. There's also broad constraint on citizen and entity working with designate foreign company. I still see that the last couple of years, the Biden administration friendshoring narrative is quite strong. But I cannot help observe the action and response of China. Last month, at the Third Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation, which happened to also mark the 10th anniversary of the BRI, President Xi Jinping have launched an unprecedented response, transcending difference in civilization, culture, social system, and stage development. And it also opened up a new path for exchange and cooperation among countries. President Xi also called for deepening high-quality Belt and Road cooperation to build an open, inclusive, and interconnected world for shared growth. Here he have injected 350 billion renminbi financing window from China Development Bank and the Export-Import Bank of China, as well as an additional 80 billion renminbi through the Silk Road Fund. China will also support BRI project on the basis of market and business operation, with the conclusion of cooperation agreement worth 97 billion US, which they signed on the margin of the Belt and Road Conference at the CEO conference. Among other flagship initiatives, China will also integrate ports, shipping and trading service under the Silk Road Maritime, as well as accelerate the building of the new international land-sea trade corridor and the air Silk Road. As a matter of fact, a few days ago in Henan province, China and Cambodia have officially kicked off the Zhengzhou, Cambodia, ASEAN New Air Silk Road. It's quite interesting. In terms of trade in goods and service, President Xi expects it to exceed 32 trillion US dollar and 5 trillion respectively in the next 5 years. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, we have to recognize that most of the East Asian countries have China as their largest trading partner, as does much of Europe and the rest of the world for that matter. It will prove extremely difficult to successfully diversify trade from China. The cost of diversifying and decoupling from China will be high. I'm also not so sure about the United States' notion of the so-called trusted partner. Perhaps labeling them as partner of convenience is more appropriate. If history is a gauge, the United States is fond of using economic leverage on their trusted partner. Ironically, with the EU, and I remember one time the former President Trump didn't want to see Mercedes-Benz rolling in the street of New York. It's quite an interesting remark, though. In trade, it's very difficult to find anyone to trust. And that's why we have the WTO, irrespective of the current dysfunctioning dispute settlement. So where do we, I take, for example, Cambodia is a small state, and I think Malaysia is also not a small state, but not a big state. But where are we? You know, a small, mid-sized state can secure our prosperity and security. How do we limit the impact of geoeconomic weaponization used by the big power? I believe that multilateralism is the key, and its role is still critical for managing future global risks. We, as a small state, all have a role to play to exert our political and diplomatic capital to convince the US that its prosperity and economic influence are enduringly linked with both China and the rest of the world. Their relentless pursuit of domestic and global security goals may lead to spiraling distrust and widespread negative spillover. I want to say that up to a few years ago, international cooperation has reached a level that may not even have been unimaginable even a century ago. It's no more the case now. No more the case now. However, in my concluding remark, I would say there's still plenty of time to reverse the course and restore it back, at least to the pre-COVID-19 level. I must admit this is a minimalist option, but it is certainly a constructive one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Siphana, who briefed us about the rise of BRICS and the Global South, the importance for the reconfiguration of international mechanism, the role of China, as well as the importance of multilateralism. Thank you very much indeed. And next we will turn to Mr. Steve Howard, who will be joining us via Zoom from Australia. He is the Secretary General of the Global Foundation. Steve.
Hello, can you hear me?
Let's turn to Steve by Zoom.
Do we have sound? Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm delighted to join you today, even if it is only online. My apologies. This is many years that I've been joining this important summit, but it's a very busy period of travel. The Australian Prime Minister is in Beijing, meeting with the Chinese President. I'll come back to that in a moment. But firstly, can I congratulate the founders and organisers, Dato Michael Yeo and Dato Tan Sri Kim. Dato Michael Yeo is also a member of the Global Advisory Council of the Global Foundation. Can I just say that the Minister's remarks now were most enjoyable. I want to applaud what he had to say in support of multilateralism, in support of recoupling, not decoupling, in terms of countries, nations, peoples working together and not fracturing. We are going through a terrifying era of a world breaking into blocks, and it is no surprise that wars are breaking out when people don't trust each other and cannot find ways to work together. And the great powers need to be very, very careful about the impact they can have by making political decisions about their so-called economic security. My organisation has been committed for many years to building a form of globalisation which is cooperative, not laissez-faire, but cooperative, which is built on fair and inclusive, transformative and prosperous globalisation. We need joined-up supply chains. And in that regard, we need China very much at the heart of this. We need Southeast Asia. We need Asia generally. I speak from an Australian perspective, although I don't represent Australia. And Australia, as you know, and many of you coming from China, Malaysia, other parts know Australia very well. Australia's economic future is totally tied up in Asia, including in China, by far the biggest trading partner for Australia. Therefore, it's been a very sad time in recent years to see the breakdown in trust and the breakdown in political relations and trade relations between Australia and China. I can report to you that the Prime Minister of Australia, Anthony Albanese, and the President of China, Xi Jinping, met less than 24 hours ago in Beijing in what I would consider was a highly successful meeting. Maybe not a reset, but in fact a resetting of the relationship on more stable grounds. It has been a very difficult time, not just in terms of trade, but in terms of cooperation, people-to-people exchanges, and to see Australia and China now re-engaging, reconnecting in this very positive way is, I think, very exciting, not just for the two countries, but for the region and to some extent to the world. Why is this so? China, perhaps more than, and Australia, perhaps more than any other countries, both rely upon globalisation to be successful, for their economic future to be sustainable. This is a very significant point, that I don't think two countries need to have a greater commitment to making globalisation work than Australia and China. So comments about the world trading system, the rebalancing that's required, the unevenness in decision-making that's gone on for years, we share your view. And in that regard, I want to mention the 4 points of the compass: north, south, east, and west. And I don't mean literally the compass. I'm talking about the north and south. The south being the developing nations of the world. Australia comes from the north, but is geographically located in the south. And I think the nations of the south have said, enough. We've had enough. We want a greater say. We want a greater decision-making ability in how the world affects us. And this is true, as you mentioned earlier, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. We were the very first organisation to support that bank's formation. I was the very first appointment to the international advisory body. Why? Because China said, we want to show you that we can lead in a world order, and it continues to do so through that bank. Now we have climate change discussions going on. In a few weeks' time, the next global meetings, the COP meetings, will take place in Dubai. What is one of the biggest factors? Will the rich world, the north, transfer to the south, the developing nations, sufficient resources to make up for what the north put up in the atmosphere over 200 years of industrialization? So south and north need to come together, and the south needs to be heard, and we are in the business of helping to remake the global institutional arrangements that are no longer fit for purpose. I mention East and West because this is the dialogue between civilizations that we also need. East and West, culturally. Australia coming from a Western tradition, but with great Eastern links, being a part of Asia. And too often these days in world affairs, we hear the word Asia left out. Indo-Pacific. Where is Asia in the Indo-Pacific? So, East and West, the dialogue between civilizations, is something that my foundation has been championing now for many years, bringing people together who may have different beliefs, may have different ways of seeing the world, but can agree to disagree on some matters, but to agree where it's possible. In June of this year, at the Vatican, that's right, the headquarters of the Catholic Church in Rome, we were invited to co-chair a dialogue between civilization, featuring people from Europe, America, Australia, and Asia, in particular China. This was about the global common good. In other words, we have only one planet to live on. If we can't agree and find ways to manage this together, then we're all doomed. It's as simple as that. And therefore, in climate change in particular, biodiversity, we have to find ways to work together. I was very encouraged recently to see that China's climate change negotiating minister, who is an old friend for many years, is talking to the American climate change negotiator at least once every 2 weeks. This does not get a lot of publicity, but it's exactly the type of connection and communication we need. And next week, the Chinese president and the American president are expected to meet on the sidelines of APEC in San Francisco. Put the world back together, but put it back together in a way that's fair and inclusive for those from the emerging and developing world, not just those from the rich world. That is the message, the 4 points of the compass, the north and the south, the east and the west. We need to rebuild, refriend, reshore together, find trust and accommodation, and build a better future. Your summit, your conference, now over many years, is building exactly that type of pan-Asian, pan-Chinese diaspora communication that is needed, and that's why your work is so very, very important. I commend you. I'm sorry I cannot be with you in person today, but I wish you well, and I thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Steve, for speaking to us from far and away. Steve mentioned the ties between Australia and Asia and China in particular, that he was very glad to see the rethinking of the Australian-Chinese relations with the Australian Prime Minister's visit to China, which is taking place right now. He talked about the North-South power dynamics and the importance for civilizational dialogue between the East and the West. Thank you. Next, we have my good friend, my fellow Sabahan, Sri Andrew Sheng, Chairman of the Georgetown Institute of Open and Advanced Studies of Wawasan Open University. And he will join us by video. Can we rewind and have the sound, please?
Global Chinese. Good morning, everyone. I am very honored to join the Global Chinese Economics Summit on Technology. Allow me to start straight away on the key issues regarding geostrategic and geoeconomic challenges facing a new multipolar world. First, there is no doubt that the global growth is slowing down. The IMF has indicated that 2020 will only be 3% growth. And the World Bank has forecast that by 2030, global growth will be half those before 2008. Overall, China and ASEAN is still growing at 4% per annum and will remain the engine of global growth. Now, what is extremely complex is that geopolitical rivalry is now over 105 trillion global GDP, of which the USA accounts for 27 trillion and China 19 trillion. Of course, EU and Japan are still very important, and then the rise of the other countries such as India, Russia and Brazil, Korea, Australia, Mexico, and ASEAN. The fundamental point about geopolitical rivalry is that industrial policy means more protectionism and less free market competition. But global AI and big data plus robotics are major game changers, which is why those who have huge technology advantage will have trade, tech, and military advantage over the others. Thus, the use of AI will speed up due to reskilling of workers, which is key to competition. Now, there is an estimate that the generative AI may add to $4.4 trillion to the global economy annually. And therefore, competition between the great powers will depend upon the digital infrastructure and technology, particularly R&D. And in this area, if we look very carefully, China has increased its R&D to nearly 22% in the last 20 years. And of course, because of the complexity of technology in its production, Asia has shifted from global factory to global services provider. Now, why is ASEAN or Southeast Asia so important to global tech trends? The answer is that ASEAN is half the geographical size of China, half the geographical area of China, and by 2030 will be the fourth largest GDP in the world, counted through a PPP, after China, US, India, and Japan. Now, if you look at this map, it goes to show how the global trade in electronics and electronic components is so central in ASEAN and East Asia. Recently, the largest PE investment in Asia was in semiconductors, of which 80% was provided for China. And 73% of the chips in the world are made in Asia, of which 22.3% value comes from ASEAN, based upon SIA and McKinsey data. So there is estimate that Southeast Asia, Malaysia, and Vietnam will reach 10% of semiconductor share by 2027. Malaysia today already accounts for 6% of overall semiconductor value in the world. And the reason why ASEAN is so good at that, if you look at the chart on the left, Malaysia provides, has 43.5% STEM graduates as a share of all tertiary education recipients, which is very high indeed. So ASEAN is clearly working to look and work with Chinese investors to upgrade the Asian market. I believe that ASEAN and China are very good fits, both economically, culturally, and technologically. And this is an area where we would have this summit will have a very good discussion on all these issues. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, thank you, Tan Sri, for the very brief but very, shall we say, data-intense presentation, where you talk about, the grimmer outlook for the world economy with geopolitical rivalry leading to protectionism, but AI, or artificial intelligence, being a potential game changer. Then there was the importance of research and development, or R&D, and China is leading in that respect. But let us also not forget the rise of Southeast Asia with the E&E, or electronics and electrical industry, being the main contributor, and ASEAN and China could perhaps join hands in so-called upgrading the market. So next, we will revert back to our stage here with our next speaker, Dr. Edward Tse, who is the founder and CEO of Gaofeng Advisory Company. Dr. Tse, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you, Dr. O, for introducing myself. Thank you for the conference organizer for inviting me to come to share with you my view on this topic. I believe that we are entering into a new world. And this new world is epitomized by multilateralism and multipolarity. But what does it really mean? How do we know that we actually are entering into the new world? There are a number of tipping points that have happened in the last couple of years that have given us very clear indication that things are changing in a very fast and abrupt manner. On the left-hand side is the comparison of the GDP on the PPP basis, purchasing power parity basis, between the G7 countries and the BRICS countries. For a long time, G7 countries was known as the most advanced industrial countries in the world. That's why G7 was formed, because these countries were so much more advanced industrially, on an industrial basis, than the rest of the world, that there's a need for them to come together to formulate what they thought would be their world view. But that was a long time ago. But you can see that over the last 10 years or so, the GDP on the PPP basis of the G7 countries have been declining on a relative basis. And at the same time, the GDP on the PPP basis of the BRICS country, when we say the BRICS countries, you all know, is the 5 countries, includes China, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The GDP on the PPP basis for the BRICS country has been increasing over the years, and by 2021, the BRICS countries' GDP have surpassed that of G7. That's a major event. On the right-hand side is the trade patterns of China with the rest of the world. I think you all know that China is a major trading nation with many, many countries. But for a long time, Chinese trades were mostly with the advanced countries, developed countries, such as the US, Europe, Japan, and so on. But earlier this year, China's trade with the Belt and Road countries actually have exceeded that of China's trade with the developed countries that I just mentioned. So when people say China's trade is declining, it may be true with the developed countries, but China's trade with the developing countries actually has been increasing, in particular with ASEAN. ASEAN is now China's biggest trading partner beyond the Western powers. These are 2 major tipping points. I think it gives us a lot of signals of where we're heading and what's the new world that we're going to be seeing very soon. Dr. Siphana mentioned about the expanded BRICS. That happened in August this year, that BRICS membership have expanded from the original 5 to 6 more. Dr. Siphana already mentioned each of those countries, so I will not repeat them. But suffice to say that this expansion is a clear indication of many of the major countries in the Global South having a feeling that they or we need to come together. We cannot be separated anymore. There's a growing need, especially for the leading countries in the Global South, to want to come together, to work together on a new global order. When we look at these expanded countries, I think we are now 11 countries, or by January 1st of next year, we're going to have 11 countries in BRICS. And we look at, from the population standpoint, it's almost half of the world's population, so that's very significant. If you look at the GDP on the PPP basis, that's about 1/3 of the world's GDP on the PPP basis. Importantly, if we look at oil production, major importance for the security of the world, over 40% of the oil production is going to be in the expanded BRICS. So the importance or the influence of the expanded BRICS for the rest of the world is going to be very, very significant, not only with the developed countries, but also with the developing countries. The other major event that happened a couple of weeks ago was the BRICS Forum. It's the BRI Forum, the Belt and Road Initiative Forum that was held in Beijing. Over 150 countries sent their representative to attend the forum. What it indicates is how BRI countries view this initiative or this program as so strategically important for them. Within the 150-ish countries, there are 22 heads of states who came to Beijing and to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the BRI initiative. I think you all know what the BRI initiative was all about. It was mainly focused on helping countries to build the infrastructure. I was having a conversation with Dr. Siphana before this meeting, and he was telling me how the BRI program has been helping Cambodia to build up its infrastructure, in particular in hydroelectrical power plants. But that's not only for Cambodia, or is it only for the Southeast Asian countries. BRI is helping many other countries in the global south, I say in particular with Africa. I think you all know that Africa has been underdeveloped for a long time, but in the last 10 years, we have seen a significant number of new infrastructure that were built in different African countries under the Belt and Road Initiative. Infrastructure such as railways, ports, bridges, dams, power stations, and even the entire administrative capital. It's the first time in African history that they now have certain degree of decent and modern infrastructure. It never happened to African countries before. Today, with BRI, that's beginning to happen. And that gives many African countries, and for the matter, many developing countries, the opportunity to develop their own economy and to trade with the other parts of the world. Physical infrastructure like these were the focus for the first 10 years of the BRI. In the forum in Beijing 2 weeks ago, the BRI initiative announced a series of new initiatives that will epitomize the next generation or the next 10 years of the BRI. And you could tell by this agenda, BRI is going to move beyond physical infrastructure, but into digital infrastructure, green development, scientific and technology innovation, as well as people-to-people exchanges. So BRI will expand the scope and go from being physical infrastructure to some higher order of undertakings. I think that will also change a great part of the world. Also, around August timeframe, Huawei have introduced a new smartphone. I think many of you will say, well, why would a smartphone be part of a geopolitical conversation? It is very important because I think you all know that Huawei has been sanctioned, has been under the US sanctions, in particular with semiconductor chips. One more minute, Dr. O, and I'll be done. And many people, especially the Americans, would think that Huawei would not be able to break out from the sanctions. But surprise to a lot of people, Huawei was able to create its own 7-nanometer chips that will help them to build this very capable, very user-friendly, and technologically advanced smartphone. In other words, Huawei or the Chinese in general have proven to the Americans that the sanctions actually do not work. Sanctions are hurting everyone, and it doesn't really work. Finally, I want to just summarize my own key takeaways from what I have been observing through my work. By the way, I work with many clients, business companies around the world, but we focus in China. But China is not only for China, but China is also for the world. My key takeaways are the following. We are entering into a multipolar world. I think you all know that. It will be the first time for many emerging markets, or what we call global south countries, to be able to lift the living conditions, some basic subsistence, basic conditions to some degree of dignity. In particular, I would say for countries in Africa, but maybe for certain parts of Asian countries as well. China presents to global south countries an alternative development model. It may be right for some of the countries, it may not be right, but certainly China is providing an alternative model that these countries can try to learn, study, and decide whether or not they want to follow. The center of gravity of the world will shift. Trade patterns will change, and also financial methods will disrupt. There will be a lot beyond this line, but because of time, I wouldn't elaborate here. But financial methods could disrupt and change the world, or the world will be changed. At times of change, there will be disruptions and perhaps conflicts. And we know that there are conflicts all over. But there will also be huge opportunity for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Since you gave us a very good summary, then I don't need to summarize for you. And next we have Professor Dr. Wang Yiwei, who is the director of the Institute of International Affairs of Renmin University, China, and he will be joining us by Zoom. So please zoom over to Professor Wang Yiwei.
Thank you. Thank you for the organizer to invite me. I'm very sorry I cannot join you in person because I should attend the Wuzhen World Internet Conference. So 3 keywords to understand our panel theme: Asia, particularly East Asia, China, and Malaysia. For firstly about Asia, East Asia. East Asia, not just the model of peace and prosperity for the globalization, but even a major contributor to globalization. Look, in Obama's period, so-called pivot back to Asia, and then there's some wagons in Europe and in the Middle East. Now they have a war, Ukraine war, conflict between Israel and Palestine, and Hamas particularly. But the pivot back to Asia, Asia not a war, there's no conflict in the past 4 decades even. I think that what we can learn from that is because of ASEAN play a very major role, and also the ASEAN community of the spirit. So that's reason also 2003, China took the pioneer role, joined the Treaty of Amity and Friendship, and then Japan and South Korea also joined, and the so-called the 10+1, 10+3, 10+6, now ASEAN. So globalization should be based on the regionalization. This regionalization should be open and inclusiveness. So that's, I think, the major lessons we can learn. And China always support ASEAN to be the leading role in the regional integration. So that reason we are negotiate the COC and the South China Sea with ASEAN. So I think that's very important. And the Belt Road Initiative, many panelists mentioned, we learned from the ASEAN about developing finance, economic corridor, industrial park, particularly from Singapore. Now we have Malaysia, Indonesia have the two-state, two industrial parks. So I think ASEAN is benefit a lot from the Belt and Road Initiative. So but we should continue open and inclusive regionalization, and we support globalization, but we need to reform the globalization towards more opening and inclusiveness and win-win and mutual benefit. Second, about China's role. ASEAN is now #1 trade partner for China in the past 3 years after Brexit replaced the European Union. But this is just a trade. So I think China and the ASEAN cooperation not focus on the traditional trade and goods. Now, like the Belt and Road Initiative or the 20-party Congress report indicate the high quality development, high level opening of China. So now we'll be more focused on the service trade, digital trade, e-commerce. I think China also applied to join the CPTPP. So we need, firstly, update RCEP. So RCEP 2.0, even though RCEP is the largest free trade zone in the world. However, the standard is not so high. So on the base of the China, Singapore, China, Malaysia, China, ASEAN, FTA 2.0, we need to hurry up the process of negotiation of RCEP 2.0, more focus on the service, digital, and high level standard. I think that's very helpful to continue our cooperation prosperity. Secondly, our relations is more on trade, investment. But how about the global supply chain, value chain? So ASEAN can play also pioneer role in stabilize the global supply chain since the China neighborhood, but also contribute to global supply chain. So now the many, we say the industrial cooperations between China and Vietnam, with Cambodia, with some ASEAN members, which contribute to that. But we should negotiate with ASEAN in general, in total, about high level of supply chain, and then contribute to global value chain. As this solid the contribution to the globalization, I think are very important. Thirdly, we need to hurry up to the cooperation, focus on more on the digital and green transformation. I think in ASEAN, the population is very young, dynamic. China now is an aging society. This year, maybe more population shrink. So we are more eager to build more connections, not go beyond the traditional, but even the green digital connections with ASEAN. So that's the reason. And also we'll talk in the Wuzhen World Internet Conference on the China-ASEAN information port of the partnership. Finally, on Malaysia. Malaysia is a model, is a pioneer in ASEAN, particularly under the BRI cooperation for 3 reasons. First, Malaysia is the most inclusive, dynamic, and diverse society in Southeast Asia. There are 3 civilizations, actually, peaceful coexistence in Malaysia. As a Muslim country, as a majority, we say the majorly focus on the man and the God relations. But also there are so much Chinese also live there. So the Chinese civilization, really for the Confucians, is more focused on the man and man relations. But also has special relations with the UK, Great Britain, and the industrial systems. So the Christianity's influence also still there, which more focus on the man and the nature relations. So 3 major relations as the Muslim civilization, as the Chinese civilization, and the Christianity civilization. So they are actually have the peaceful coexistence in Malaysia. There's no any so-called anti-Chinese movement in Malaysia. It's a model of Malaysia. Now, secondly, Malaysia also have a good, I think, industrial base. So it's very important for high quality development. And also, Malaysia is very important, I think, it's inclusiveness culture. Now, I think that many Chinese education, because the Chinese education very important, it focuses emphasize education, educate the youth. So I think that's the hope for the future digital development, because we will invest the youth, educate the youth, and with the digital civilizations will be benefited to all. So again, for us, for Eastern Asia, for China and Malaysia, we shall be the model, not just to bring back of the peace and prosperity, but also contribute of the high-level development and the BRI and also globalization. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, a lot of things. East Asia, no conflict. ASEAN spirit is good. Better even with China and others. BRI, open and inclusive. China is ASEAN's #1 trading partner and vice versa. RCEP should be upgraded to its 2.0 version with emphasis on service trade and stabilization of global supply chain, and also an emphasis on green and digital trade. Thanks for praising Malaysia as a multicultural society with influences of many civilizations, good industrial base, and hopefully good education, which can enhance its digitalization. So that's the notes I have, okay? Hand taken. So, last but not least, we have my other good friend. Wow, this one is a long title. Professor Major, Honorary Major, right? Dr. Engineer Chin Yu Sin JP, who will be the concluding speaker.
Started by my good friend. He's a senior minister from Cambodia, so I'm going to end for it. Okay, today I'm going to talking about the shifting power from the west to the east. I mean, according to the book of I Ching, anything, there's one Chinese saying that anything about 10 years, there will be a change from the what I call from the east part of the river to the west part of the river. This is talking about the Yellow River. So this one 10年河东转河西啊. So I mean in everything there's a what I call rise and fall of an empire. You look back at the history, 500 years ago, this Dutch was #1 in the world economically. They are the greatest trader in the world at that time. Then later on, this British Empire took over, become the world #1 economically, and they have got about many these what I call colonies all over the world. Then later on, after the Second World War, this US become #1. So I think this time, China going to regain its place. It lost about 200 years ago, since 1896. So American rule of the world is going to end. I will give you some reason why. Because now you look at the thing, everybody know that this US is worried about the new world order is coming. Because they always think that the world is belong to them. So nobody can challenge them. If anybody challenge them, they will kill you or just try to slow your progress. This is their mentality. Because this US very good in what? US destruct, China construct. What do you mean? US any country don't listen to them, they will first thing they sanction them economically, then later on still don't listen, they will sort of start a war with them. Because US, look at history, since independence in 1776 until now, 247 years, only less than 15 years they don't have war. Because US cannot survive without any war. This you can see. Their economy is based on war economy. They need the war in order to survive. That's why you can see whenever there is war, the oil price will go up. The oil, this natural gas price also will go. Because US now is actually is the largest producer of oil and gas in the world now. No, many people don't know that they are the largest. No, so that's why they like to start a war and then can sell the weapon also. This is why US need to start a war in order to survive. Without war, they cannot survive. You look at all presidents, except this Donald Trump, you know, recently one he don't really start a war because to him he's a businessman. He thought, well, you start a war, you need to spend so much, not worth it. You see, they return nothing. That's why he keep on saying the previous president started a war at Iraq, at this Afghanistan, all wasting money only. That's why they wasted about $3 trillion. But China spent more than $3 trillion in building infrastructure. That is a difference. I think it's good news that this US is declining. Because the US way of doing things, you cannot unite the whole world. Only the China philosophy of Confucius saying that harmony in diversity and not unity in disharmony can save the world. In Chinese saying that 君子和而不同，君子和而不同，而不是同而不和。This is very important because in this Chinese belief that, I mean, you can have differences among people, but overall there is a unity among all nations. This Chinese philosophy is something like very accommodating, and they like to achieve a win-win situation, and then there's praise for everyone to develop itself. But this Western culture, or this is what I call Western culture, especially this American culture, they are cowboy mentality, you know. Once they pull out the gun, either you kill me or I kill you. There's no such thing as compromise or no such thing as win-win situation. So that's the reason why, you know, if any nation don't listen to them, they will start a war or start with economic sanction. They still don't listen, they will start a war. So that is how, with this kind of American way of thinking, you cannot unite the world in peace. Only China, this sort of philosophy, that can unite the whole world, because China can tolerate all kinds of differences. Because in China, you know, the Chinese culture actually is not a singular culture, no. It's a unified culture from so many minorities, you see. Because Chinese culture is very accommodating, it can absorb other culture to become its own culture. There's a reason Chinese culture can last for more than 5,000 years old. There's no interruption. It's a continuous culture. All other, what I call ancient cultures like the Babylonian culture, the old Indian culture, and this what I call this Persian culture, all no more already, or the Greek culture, all these are all disappear already, because all these culture, they cannot last for what I call so many generations like China. China is the only civilization that can last for so many generations until now. 5,000 years, no what I call continuous one, no interruption. So there's a reason why you can see the Chinese culture is the only culture that can unite the whole world, and then it will have peace. Because Chinese don't believe in war, because every time Chinese say we want to be friends with everybody, they don't want to start a war. Because to them, when you start a war, economically it's no good. That's why Chinese people, they go all over the world to do business only, to construct infrastructure for people, to sort of help them to live a better life. They don't want to have war. See, that's the reason. And then there's the reason also why within short period of 45 years, China can develop so fast, because there's a stability. Then to US also, because the US keep on fighting in the Middle East, for no time to look after China. If not, I think they will try to put more obstacles along the way for China. That's the very reason why China can develop so fast for the last 45 years, because US got not much time to really go and oversee China development. That's the reason why China got the time to develop so fast within 45 years. But now US has realized that China had to be stopped, but it's too late already. Now the whole world, since after the Ukraine war, Russia is the first one to really want to challenge the US supremacy, because US kicked this Russian out of this SWIFT system. That is the downfall of this US currency. Before that, China still not ready yet to challenge this US currency. But after this Ukraine war, this Russian and Ukraine war, so Russia is the nation to really come out as a leader to challenge this US dollar. That's why now so many nations, including Malaysia, also say we should not rely on US dollar, because Malaysia suffer a lot because of this US currency appreciation, the interest rate. So we also suffer a lot. That's why now all the nations realize already, we cannot depend on US dollar. Once you depend on US dollar, because US uses US dollar as a weapon, they weaponize the currency to go against so many countries like Iran, Russia, all these things. That's why one day, the small nation also think that one day I could be the victim, you see. That's why now they realize already. That's caused the downfall of US dollar faster than expected. US dollar sure will decline, but only after the Russian-Ukraine war, I mean the pace become quicker and faster. So that's why now all the nations realize already. And then also because of the rise of China, the China philosophy of having a working relation with people, win-win situation, that everybody would be losing and like that. That's why this sort of philosophy, I think, is the best one to unite the whole world. That's why now so many nations look up to China already. Among 206 countries in the world, 152 countries have trade relationship with China. And most of these nations, they are the #1 trading nation with China. That's why you can see China use this trade economic power to unite the whole world. US use the weapon, use what I call the military might to sort of force the nation to accept their ideology. I think that is, you can see the difference. One's using the soft power, the other using the hard power or whatever, military power. That's why once you use military power, people even listen to you also, they are not happy, you see. They only got no choice to listen to it. But if there's another alternative like China one, come up with a new world order, I think all the nations, you can see during recently the One Belt One Road summit, how many nations come to China? 150 whole countries. Got a president, you got a president, got the premier, you got a prime minister, even the Russian president came over also. Then you can see what I call the influence of China now. Now US try to have this the summit, and at this US, how many nations will come over? Not many nations will come over. Even the South Pacific nation, the islands people also don't bother to go over there. Because first thing, US is not so strong already. They don't have money already. Because you don't have money, you want to sort of get people to support you, it's very difficult. So there's a thing. Now, US still can control a little bit because of their military power, you see. That's why you're going to stop me already, you see. So, okay, I just conclude. I would say the New World Order should base on the Chinese philosophy of harmony in diversity and not unity in disharmony. I think that is this philosophy can unite the whole world. Everybody still can have own what I call ideologies. I mean, the overall everybody still can live peacefully. I think that is a philosophy we should champion, and then all the nations should support this concept so that all nations can live in peace and what I call harmony. That is the most important thing. Because when you start a war, you see the recent war, this Israel, this Palestine, then you can see so many people suffering, and then there is no stability. I think this is my last what I call my message to everybody, that China should emerge as the leading power in the world so that the whole world can live in peace and harmony. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think the main message, at least to me, it's no money, no talk. So now, do we have burning questions, ladies and gentlemen? Do we have some issues, pressing issues? If not, ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time as well as of lunch, let us conclude this session. Thank you very much for staying with us, and I would like to thank you to say thank you to all the panelists, the outstanding panelists. Let's give them a big hand.